Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Misty Michael from X-Rite Photo, and I'd like to welcome you to our latest guest presenter webinar, Adding Motion from Subtle to Jump with professional photographer Frank Doorhof. Before Frank gets underway, let me just give you a very quick introduction. Frank is both an X-Rite Coloratti and commercial, fashion, and celebrity photographer. Frank was brought up in a family of photography and video enthusiasts. He teaches workshops and seminars on model photography shoots, both in his studio in Emmeloord, Holland, or out on location all over the world. He has created some instructional DVDs and books that are used worldwide, as well as taught for Kelby Training, which is well worth a visit at www.kelbytraining.com. Frank's latest book, Mastering the Model Shoot, takes you behind the scenes of a photo shoot, revealing every step behind his model photography workflow, which is available on Amazon. Now, during the webinar, if there are any sound problems, I'm just going to recommend that you listen through headphones. Sometimes it can be a bit quiet listening through speakers. And if you have any questions, please write them in the appropriate question panel. We will try and respond live, but as Frank gets busy into the shooting part, we'll try and answer as many as we can at the end of the webinar. Any unanswered questions will be collated after the webinar, and we'll respond to those as best we can. Now, let's begin the webinar and hand over to Frank.
So, let's show my screen. Okay, can you guys hear me? Yeah, I hear a lot of responses, so I guess you can. So now I will try to also get into the picture. And I would say welcome in our studio in Emmeloord. And today we're going to do a webinar based on a very simple concept. How do you go from okay to wow? In other words, you can make a funny picture, like you have a girl standing there holding something like a prop, but it looks a little bit fake. You know, it's always a little bit the same, and it gets boring. So you start buying new props, right? And before you know it, your whole studio is filled up with props, like chairs or umbrellas, or even worse, roses. Don't even go there. What you actually can do is you can actually use your model as a prop. And I don't mean throw her around in the studio, but just use her as a prop. Models have this amazing hair, right? Long hair. If you start using hair as a prop in your photo shoot, you can make it a lot more interesting. Now, one of the things that you, of course, can do with hair is add motion. And I have to be very careful with this because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You have to really participate with your model. You have to find out what does your model like, how does your model move, and every model moves differently. So to make it even more exciting for myself, I've actually asked a model I only worked with once. So let's up the ante a little bit. I thought let's do a live photo shoot with a model I don't even know that well. But for you guys, this is actually cool because normally you don't have a model in front of your camera which you work with every day. So this is actually pretty nice. So I would like to introduce to you guys our new model, Rosa. Hello, Rosa.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Say hi to the crowd.
Hi.
She doesn't have a mic, so that's like, yeah, you don't hear what she's saying probably, or do they?
I don't know.
Me neither. So one of the things that you can do in the studio is, of course, you have these difficult sets, right? What do I do? Do I use seamless paper? And we have, of course, seamless paper in our studio. We have 10 rolls, all the different colors. But the thing that I really like to do is work with structure, because we as photographers love structure. Today, even on internet, I saw somebody going like, you know when you are a photographer? When somebody demolishes your window and your husband goes like, oh my, the window is broken, and you go like, ooh, look at the structure, that's nice to photograph. Structure creates the mood of a picture. So when we started this studio, we actually said to some painters, you know what, paint all the walls differently, create structure, create three-dimensionality. And this is what ended up in our studio, all these different walls, and they all have different structures, they all have different identities. So today we're going to use a white wall with a lot of structure, and we're going to put Rosa in front of it, and we're just going to play a little bit. We're just going to stand, and we're just going to create a simple portrait. And after that, we're going to up the ante. So Rosa, can you please stand in front of the wall? Great. So I'm going to use one strobe at the moment. A beauty is with a grid, and I'm going to aim it pretty high up. So I'm going to aim it up. There we go. and then move it towards the model. There we go. So now we have this nice light fall-off because there's actually a grid in the strobe. So you get this nice vignetting around the model, but also a nice quality of light. Now the first thing you do, of course, when you start photographing is grab a light meter and make sure that your exposure is correct. Now a lot of people say you don't need a light meter, right? I can do it by hand, or I can just look at the light and go like, well, f16. Well, nice if you can do it, but I would like to do it a little bit more simple. Aim towards the light source in this case, and I get a reading of 16.1, meaning I'm almost at f16. This is how fast you do it with a light meter. So just meter, and you know the exposure, and you're spot on from the first exposure on. So grab the camera. Of course, we're shooting on manual mode, 125th of a second. We're going to go to f16. So there we go. So Rosa, can you look straight at me, please, and give that very nice look? Cool. There we go. Now you will see the first shot coming in, and it's a really dark shot. You could almost say, like, Frank, is this right? It is, but there's one thing missing, a key element in a good portrait, the eyes. The eyes are actually very, very important. The thing I always teach my models is make sure that from at least one of your eyes you can see the light. Because as soon as you can see the light, like in the corner of your eyes, you actually get cat's lights. Now look at the difference. This is a nice image, but now look what happens when she looks into the light a little bit more. Nice. There we go, and this opens up the whole face. If you have dark eyes, the face will go dark, and you get those raccoon eyes. Those aren't that nice. So in this case, it opens up the face way better. And of course, because he's turning her head up, it works very well. Oh, by the way, one little tip, and I got this from a friend of us, Peter Hurley. If you have a model that has a little bit of a chin, or an under chin, I don't know how you call it in English, and this is brilliant. When I saw him doing it, I was like, I have to remember this one. What you can actually tell your model is, push your chin forward, and then tilt your head down. What they actually do is they make a sort of chicken movement, and that will stretch this out and works perfectly. If you normally say, look a little bit down, they will do like this, and you get this little piece of extra skin. If you now first tilt your head forward and then down, it stretches it out. So that's one tip just in between for posing. Okay, I want a little bit more angry look, like I just stole your bike. Like we're in the Netherlands, we all drive bikes. That's nice. Chin up just a little bit. Perfect. Very nice. Okay, keep it that way. Cool. Now what you actually see is that I'm constantly talking to my model. I'm constantly coaching my model. Even if it doesn't go well, I keep saying, oh, you're doing fine, you're doing great, cool, nice image. Because she has to be comfortable in front of the camera. If I start going like, nah, this doesn't work, she will actually go down in her energy, and she will go like, oh my, I'm doing something wrong, oh help. And that will hurt your session. So let's see what we can do with hair. Rosa, can you put your hair in front of your face a little bit? Nice. Look up. Tilt your head that way. Nice. Cool. Very nice. Very fierce. Cool. And now there's a 5-second delay, so I'll keep quiet for about 5 seconds and you will see the images coming in. Looks a little bit better, right? But now we want a little bit of expression. We want a little bit of our model imagining something. Like there's a big, ugly guy in front of, oh, wait a minute, that's too real. There's the handsome dude. No, that's not real, of course, too. Actually, what I'm doing now is I'm making her laugh. You see this? I'm telling a little bit of a joke. So this works a little bit better. So give me a natural smile. There we go. Chin up just a little bit. Nice. Keep your hair in front of your face again. Nice. Pull it in front. Nice. Cool. Nice. Now, one of the things is if you tell a model to laugh, there aren't many models that can laugh like, and they will keep it. So if you tell a little bit of a joke, it will be way more natural. But this is fun. Now what I want to do is I want to add motion. And that's why I'm shooting on f16. I want to add that motion. Now why I'm shooting on f16? As soon as you start adding motion, the problem is your model will probably go a little bit forward, a little bit back. Now, if you're one of those guys that said, I'm only shooting f1.4, this new lens is coming out, it's a 0.8, that's my lens. Good luck. The only tip I can give you is if you shoot motion with a 0.8 or a 1.4 wide open, add a lot of black and white contrast, a lot of grain, and you have instant art, because the image will be totally out of focus on the areas where you want it to be in focus. If you're shooting on f16 and you're shooting with a 70mm, in this case I'm using a 24-70, I'm shooting on 70, so I have a little bit of compression from the lens, but because my model is moving, and on f16 she actually has a little bit of movement back and forth, and she will still be in focus. So first we're going to do it very simple. Can you look that way, please? And as soon as I say yes, just turn around very fiercely and just let your hair fly. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. Now also do something with your arms, like you're fighting me. Yes, 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, one more. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice, and a few more. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. The only problem is, as you can see, it's nice, but her face is covered. So I can do this a few more times. Let's go. And she will have a headache. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. 1, 2, 3, go. Cool. Now, in the old days, like a few months ago, this was the way you had to work. Because with constant lighting, you can actually shoot continuous. So you can start shooting, shooting, shooting. With strobes, you have to wait until the strobes are recycled, right? Now watch this. I'm going to go into the menu. I'm going to put my camera on high continuous shooting, meaning I'm going to shoot about 7, 8 frames a second. The fun part is I can now tell my model to be a Muppet. And a Muppet means that she will start headbanging and turning around and doing all this crazy stuff. You know what I mean, right? Mm-hmm. So can you be a Muppet? Yeah. Okay, be my Muppet. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice, don't destroy my studio. Now the images you see coming in, actually, which I shot in a few seconds, are way better than I would go like, okay, 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, go. Because then you miss some shots. By the way, the black ones you see, so we're having a problem with the Wi-Fi at the moment, and it's interrupting with the Sky port. So sometimes the strobe doesn't fire. It's not that they don't keep up. Nice. The only thing I'm now missing is I want a little bit, oh, I love that one. That's the one that will come in 4 seconds. I want a little bit more motion with her hands. I want her to move a little bit. So you know what I mean, huh? Mm-hmm. Okay. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. Now normally when we shoot on the card, you can actually shoot for like 40 frames. Now because we're shooting tethered, I'm shooting like 12, 13 frames, and then it's over, because at that moment the buffer has to empty. This is nice. Now this is one of the nice things you can do with modern strobes. Oh, I love that one. Very cool. Now imagine this being shot with only 1 frame a second. It is a little bit of cheating, of course, but see it as a soccer player that makes a nice sliding. If you shoot it with 10 frames a second, you have way more chance than waiting for the next sliding, waiting for the next sliding. Now, sometimes I also let models jump. And when you let models jump, that's pretty cool. But when they're wearing high heels, don't make them jump too high. Are you here wearing high heels? She's wearing high heels. This is going to be fun. Call 911. If she jumps too high, that's terrible. So we won't let her jump too high. Now, one of the things that you have to be very careful for, if you shoot a jumping model and you shoot it from here, this height, she will actually look smaller. So the fun thing is, we're going to take a little bit of a chair. I'm going to sit a little bit lower, and I'm going to let the model jump. But there will be a problem, and I will show you in a moment. So I'm going to take this chair. Let me see, I'm going to place it here. Very nice. Don't film my backside, Mark. Mark is our video guy. He makes sure that I look pretty. Thank you, Mark. Okay, let's do it first without extra lighting. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, jump. Nice. Now, the picture you see coming in is actually pretty nice. The only problem is, where are her feet? Her feet are gone. Oh my, Frank, what did you do? And that's actually pretty easy to explain. Her feet are gone for the very simple reason there's no light hitting it, right? So I want a little bit of light on her feet. Now, how do we do this? Actually, you can do it two ways. One, you can say, you know, I love this shot, but I'm very sorry, I can't do this. For the very simple reason there's not enough light on her feet. Let's go to a 1.5 meter softbox. Now, a 1.5 meter softbox, or even a 1.9. Nowadays, you're not a good photographer if you don't have a 2 meter softbox. And then the other guy goes like, I have 2 meters and 5 centimeters. It's like the bigger the softbox, the better you are. In my opinion, if you have a big softbox, it's very easy to hit your model. If you have smaller light sources, you actually have to pinpoint towards your model. Now, if you pinpoint to your model, it also means that the light falls off, meaning that the background will be dark. That's nice. But also the model will be dark. So how are we going to create this? We're going to add a light, and I call this light in light. In my book, Mastering the Model Shoot, there's actually a great tip about light in light. Now, light in light is very easy to understand. Everything has a dynamic range, right? So your dynamic range of your camera, for example, is 12 stops, meaning you can go from pure black to pure white, and you have 12 stops. If you're shooting film, some films will go +4, -4, or +2, -3. In the old days, we all had to remember this stuff. So Velvia, that's +2, -2. If you go to Riella, this is this. If you go to Ilford, you have to use this. Nowadays, it's way easier. We have a digital camera, and we only have one roll of film. That's the sensor. So we know our dynamic range. I know for this Sony, I'm using an Alpha 99 at the moment, that my dynamic range for pure black is about 4.5 stops under my main light. Okay, so recapture this. My main light is f16. If I want pure black, I use a light that's lower than 4.5 stops below my main light. So if you go from f16 to f11, f8, 5.6, 4, 2.8. Let's say I'm shooting on 2.8 with a different light source. The light source will have no impact on my image. It will just be black. If I shoot with a different light source on, let's say, f4, it actually starts creeping in the shadows. It will just light in the shadows a little bit. You could call it a fill-in light. I always call it light in light because we're actually using two light sources. So let's bring out a very big softbox. Now, why a very big softbox? For the very simple reason, I don't want a lot of extra shadows. Now, if I set this up, you will actually see why I call it light in light. Because what I'm actually doing is I'm placing it behind my original light source. There we go. Let's see if we find a power outlet that works. Still no wireless power in the Netherlands. There we go. Are you having fun, Rosa?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, the first thing I do is I turn off this strobe, of course. There we go. I'm going to turn this one all the way down. There we go. How many stops under? Let's start with 4. So I'm shooting on f16 to f11, f8, 5.6, 4. So I'm going to meter that light source on f4. This is why this is so handy. You don't have to look. So in front of a client, you just meter and you take the shot and it's great. You look like a magician. f4.8. It's a little bit too much, but I can't go lower. So what do you do if you want to go lower? Very simple. You move the light source further away and you will get a lower exposure. There we go, f4. Turn on the strobe again. And remember, as soon as you start adding lights, they add together, right? So I have two light sources. They both have an output. Add them together, you get a little bit more light on the model. So I have to remeter the model. Very nice. Remeter on her face. Very cool. Just change this just a little bit. There we go. Nice. Perfect. Normally we can do it by remote control, but because I have them both in the same group, I can't use a remote control at the moment. Let's first take the shot without her jumping, because we do want to make sure that if she jumps, it works, right? And I'm now on the edge. I'm literally at the low point of where I want to be. There we go. Nice. And now the shadows are a little bit filled in. By the way, I was on speed mode, so I have to go out of speed mode for this one. There we go. So the shadows are now a little bit filled in, and this is what I like, because now I still have that crisp quality of light of the beauty it is with grid. And because I'm using light in light, I don't have double shadows, because they're actually under approximately the same angle, and it's so big it won't cast any extra shadows. It will still open up the shadows just a little bit. Okay, Rose, are you ready for a little bit of a jump? 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. That's cool. Nice. Now I want something with your hands, and maybe lift up your knee just a little bit, one of the knees. 1, 2, 3, go. Cool. Chin up while you're doing that. Oh, sorry. That was my fault. 1, 2, 3, go. Wow. Now look straight into the light while you're doing that. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, sorry. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. This is what I call light in light. And by adding a little bit of motion, you now actually have a way more interesting image. Now, if your model is up for it, are you? She is. What she can actually do is take one step back, do the same thing, but now as you jump, you look all the way over there, and as soon as you jump, you just shift your head. Yeah, that's cool. 1, 2, 3, go. Wow, one more. Final shot for this. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. So this is cool. This is way better than just that standard shot. And remember, everybody can jump. The only thing I never tell models is how to jump. Because if you start doing like, okay, jump like this, lift up your feet, do this, do that, all the jumps will look the same. The fun part is that every model jumps differently. Every person is different. So that way you can create something completely unique. And of course, you have everything set up now. Should it be wise to now stop shooting? No, of course not. You have to do one more very, very important thing before we do the next light setup. And then, of course, we do retouching. Now, I always have this little thing with me, and there are Apple logos on it. And the reason I have Apple logos on it, because X-Rite, I hope you're listening, they made this black. Most of my studio gear is black. Normally, when we're shooting, the whole studio is blacked out. So I lost a lot of these in the studio, and that drove me nuts. So I started putting stickers on it, because now when the stickers are on it, I can actually see them in the dark. So X-Rite, please make a little bit of a fluorescent thing on this side, and also do it on that side, because otherwise if you turn it over, yeah, that's why there are two stickers on each side. Now what is this? It's a color checker passport, and maybe this is the most important shot of your whole session. I always do it at the end or at the beginning. I don't do it in between, at the end or the beginning. And if you're starting with this, do it at the beginning. Because if you do it at the start and you forget it, you can do it at the end. That also works. It's very important that she aims it towards the light source. You can keep it. You can't keep it, but hold it and hold it like this. So no fingers on the patches. It's not a makeup box. There we go. We once had a model that started doing her makeup with it. She said, that's cheap stuff. It doesn't work. Yeah, sure. Keep it in front of your face. Aim it towards the light. Very nice. Make sure that you fill about 50% of the frame. Take the shot, and you're done. Now, the nice thing about this is now I have a reference point. The reference point is very important, because if I don't make a color profile, because this actually creates a color profile, I can at least use it for white balance. And white balance is very simple, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. You just click on the gray patch, and you have a beautiful, nice, color cast-free image. Okay, I promised you one more light setup, so we're going to do that. We're going to create a high contrast, striking image with a lot of detail. So first we're going to remove this one, otherwise nobody can see what we're doing. There we go. And if there are any questions, just write them down, and after the seminar we'll see if I can answer all your questions. It's going to be late. Okay, the fun part about light is controlling light, shaping light, making structure with light. Now again, the wall has very, very high structure. And when do you see structure? If you hit it on the side. Because if you hit it on the side, you will actually get shadows. Shadows create three-dimensionality. In other words, create depth, realness. So I have to light you under an angle. That's scary, right? Okay, let's see. I'm going to place the light over here. And this is a very simple setup. I always do this. And the fun part is I always do it at the end of the seminar for people who didn't see it yet. But it's a very, very powerful setup. And it always works. Unless it doesn't work, but that never happened before. So it always works. Okay, you can stand against the wall and about here. Now what I want you to do is make sure that you keep looking at the light and just lean against the wall. That's cool. We meter towards the light source. 11.4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What I'm now doing is I have a remote control in my light meter, and I'm actually raising the strobe 6 points. Frank, why 6 points? Because I'm metering 11.4, meaning 11 and 4/10 of an f-stop. If I add 6 more, I'm at f16, because it goes in 1/10 of an f-stop. There we go, f16. Now, a lot of people ask me, where do I point that meter? Because there's a lot of confusion, right? Do I point towards the camera? Do I point towards the light source? Where do I point? Because everybody says something different. In reality, what you have to remember is this is an incident meter, meaning light hits it, gives you a value, and the area behind it will be rendered correctly in your final image. You already know where to point it? I see you're sitting there going like, you guys. In the studio, it actually means you're almost always pointing towards the light source. Now imagine being outside. What is the light source? The sun, right? Now we have our model standing, the sun is behind her, and she's looking straight at the camera. Very nice. And you want that face to be perfectly lit. You don't point towards the sun, because if you point towards the sun, her backlight will be great, but her front will be very, very dark. You don't point towards the camera, because I don't know where I'm going to stand. Maybe I'm going to walk around my model. What you actually do is you determine which side of the face do I want correct. Now let's say the sun is coming from here. Then I'm going to meter this side of her face. Aimed a little bit that way. So it gets a little bit of the sun and a little bit of, there we go, the ambient light, because that's actually outside your second light source. I don't meter this side, because this side will be a little bit darker, and then we will blow out this side. Sounds a little bit confusing. On my website, I have a lot of explanation about this, but always remember that you hold the light meter in front of the area of the face or the subject that you want correct, the diffused value. If you have that correct, then the light meter works wonders. If you just point it towards the camera, let's say I'm shooting from here, and I'm pointing it towards the camera, it will actually say f8.06. Trust me, that's way overexposed. On the other hand, if I only want this side of her face to be correctly lit, that's perfect, that's spot on. But in the studio, I wanted high contrast look, so I'm pointing towards the light source. F16, great. Okay. And you can actually move around your model to create different looks. Let's say I want a little bit of a flatter look. Look a little bit down. Nice. Eyes towards the light. Cool. Now look at me. Nice. Look straight ahead. Nice. Look a little bit more towards me. Stop. Now you get that really nice high contrasty look. Another tip is when you're on location, I see a lot of people shooting on location, like, hey Frank, I went to Los Angeles. Look at my pictures, what do you think? And I see a model laying on the beach in sand, and I go like, yeah. You went where? You went to our beach, right? No, Los Angeles, look at the light. And you go like, okay. One of the things that you have to realize is you're a storyteller. We are all storytellers, and light is our language. Make sure that you're a poet with your language. So make sure that you work with your light. Don't just slam your light in there and go like, hey dude, light. Make it nice, make it sing. And how do you make light sing? Very simple. You include something of the area. If you're in LA or Miami or New York and you shoot a model, don't make a portrait like you see now on the screen. What you actually do is you move back. You zoom out. Look that way. What you're actually doing is you're starting to show where the model is. Turn your face a little bit more towards me. Nice. Oh. Nice. Very, very cool. You can even move more. Can you hold your hands like this? Nice. And I'm actually gonna include some of the background also. Chin down just a little bit. Nice. And now you can really see where she is. The model is still my main focus point, but I'm actually also showing the area around the model. So I want to thank Rosa very much. Thank you very much. And we are going to go into the retouching part. So we're going to switch off the cameras. I'm going to run to my computer, start up the Wacom and Lightroom, and I'm already tired when I think about it. And then we're going to do the retouching. So don't go away. I will be there in a second. I'll just keep talking for you guys. So there we go. Let's close this. Let's close this. And I'm shooting with Capture One to tether, and I'm actually using Lightroom at the moment because a lot of the people don't use Capture One. So I'm going to do the retouching part in Lightroom. I'm going to synchronize the folder because we prepared, of course. So here are all the images. You remember the one we shot with the color checker? Okay, here is the one. Now this is my most important shot. If you want to do it quick, down and dirty, you go into the develop module. And you go into your color picker. And you just press here. And now all the colors are right. You do edit, select all, and you just say sync. Well, I didn't do anything else yet, so just synchronize. There we go. Now all the pictures have the right color balance, meaning there is no difference in color anymore. So if you're shooting with strobes that have, let's say, 5,000 degrees Kelvin, all the shots are now 5,000 degrees Kelvin. If you're shooting with strobes that are a little bit different, no problem at all. I advise you to shoot your color checker before every single light setup. So if you just change something, shoot the color checker. But the main thing of the color checker you can find here. If you go down in your develop module, you see here Adobe Standard. You can change this to Sony Alpha 99. I already created one. Now look at the difference. That's a huge difference, right? Now let's do the same color balance again. I always do this twice. There we go. So go down again, go to Adobe. Where's Adobe? It's nice, but it misses a lot of the color and punch. Now you go to the Sony. There we go. This is how a picture should look. And this is one of the nice things about the Color Checker Passport and why I think it should be in every case of a photographer. So we're going to sync again, but now with the right profile. There we go. Okay. Now, how do you create a profile like this? Well, normally I will show you guys, and I will try now, but we have a little bit of a problem with the Sony cameras. And let's see if it works. And if it doesn't work, at least you see how we do it. What I normally do is I will make a crop. And I will make sure that part of the color checker is nicely in the frame. There we go. Now, if you're shooting Canon and Nikon, this is the way that it works. There we go. Now, what you do is File, Export. You go to Color Checker Passport. You give it a name like Sony Alpha 99 Rosa. And you press Export. This is it. There's no problem at all. This is how you export. And you saw me getting an error. That's because we're using a slightly different setup now, but normally it works. After that, you have to restart your Photoshop Lightroom. You go down here and you will find Sony Alpha 99 Rosa. Again, I can't show it now because we're running slightly different software on the back, but this is the way it should normally work. Very, very simple. Okay. Now the first thing I always do is clean up my hard drive, because hard drives are cheap, but they still cost money, right? So every picture I see that I don't really like, I will give an X. X means label for deletion. It doesn't delete it yet, it just labels it. So I actually do like this shot. That's nice. That's nice. That's a little bit less. So X. And we give this one an X. Like this one. That's nice. That's a little bit the same. Love her smile. Very nice. Love this one. Nice, but a little bit too simple. And I don't mean you're simple, Rosa, don't worry. Just a little bit of a simple look. Okay, this is nice. It's okay. Cool. Nice. And you see, when I see nice, it actually deletes from my folder because I only want kick-ass images. And that's why a lot of people say, Frank, you never shoot a wrong image. It's like, oh yeah, I do, but I delete a lot of the other ones. One of my students actually said, I save every image because maybe in the future I can save them. It's like, it's not like an endangered species. Just keep the images that are really kick-ass and delete all the other ones. Oh, I love this one. Nice. Not so nice. So I will do it a little bit quicker. You get the drift, right? This is the one with jumping, and this is the one with filling light. And that was the one with no light. Like this one? No. Cool. Nice. Okay. There we go. Nice, nice. Okay, the portraits. I'll do the quick selection. I don't like it when she looks straight at me, because what you actually see here is, I call that the Walking Dead look. You have a lot of eye white. So those are the pictures I don't really like. So delete that one. It's nice. It's okay. Love this one. Okay. Very nice. I don't like this one. And this is also very nice. Now what I do is I go into the file and library actually, and I will delete all the images I didn't like. Sorry, I have to do that from the library module. Go into photo, delete rejected photos. Okay. Now a few people ask me, like, Frank, why didn't you rename your images? Well, I'm going to rename them now. And the reason is very, very simple. Sometimes you have those customers or a model, and I always call them model zillas. You have those models that are really obnoxious, and they go like, Frank, I want to see all the images now. And you go like, yeah, but there are a lot of images in there that I don't, no, I want to see them now, right now. You go like, okay. Yeah, I like my face there, retouch that one. And you go like, yeah, it's a paying customer, but I hate the image. So you don't do that, right? But if you keep all your images, you don't have a choice because he sees all the images. What I'm actually doing now is, after I deleted all the images, I'm going to rename them. I'm going to rename the photos. I'm going to actually call them Rosa, June 5th, 2014, X-Rite webinar. There we go. And I press OK. Now if my model comes in, she sees all the images that I say those are okay. In other words, they aren't bad, they are in focus, they are okay, cool. If you want one of those images, it isn't my primary choice, but they're all good. And if she asks, you shot more, right? You go like, no. Sometimes it seems like that because we have so much fun, but there are a lot of test shots, and you know, you just offer them coffee and they will forget the subject. So let's select the images that I really like, and that goes really fast because an image for me has to jump out immediately. And you see me using the P. P means wow. And I really always select this fast, because if an image doesn't jump out in the first 2 seconds, it's not good enough. Now in this case, I'm a little bit in doubt between this one or this one. I actually think I like this one the best, so I P'd that one. Sorry, I used P on that one. Now that also sounds weird. Sorry guys. So I use P. There we go. And let me take one of these. This one. Okay. Cool. Now I selected some images. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to filters off, and I'm going to show flagged. Now I only have 4 images. Now we only shot for like 20 minutes, so I think that's pretty nice. Now let's just show you how I retouch, because a lot of people think that retouching takes hours, right? That shouldn't be. What you actually can do is very simple. If you like your image and use a light meter, you don't have to change anything in the develop module. You don't have to go into, oh, let's change the exposure, let's change contrast, let's change shadow. No, you use the light meter. And when you trust your light meter, you know that everything will be right. And I use the color checker, so I don't have to fiddle around with any of the colors. Boring, right? Yeah, so let's skip this part. Command E, and you go into Photoshop. There we go. Now, Photoshop and skin, that's like a big issue, right? Because, well, I always say it as a joke. You have to use the feather of a dragon dipped in elven blood to retouch and dodge and burn for at least 6.5 hours, because then you are a real photographer. Well, guys, I just uploaded a video on YouTube and I got a response from somebody. And what I actually showed is how to get detail back into way too much blurred skin. And when the video starts, I actually tell people, this is terrible. This is not the way you should retouch skin. But if you did, this is a very easy fix to bring in detail. And I got this professional photographer responding, this is not the way you should retouch skin. And I got this whole discussion. I'm like, dude, read it. Yeah, but you shouldn't learn people like this. You should learn them that you should dodge and burn. Well, guys, I don't know about you guys, but if you're a professional photographer, please raise your hands. Okay, so you guys make money, right? Raise your hands if you make money. Cool. Now, which one of you guys owns a Bentley and has a lot of hot chicks with him and drives a Porsche as a hobby? Nobody. That's weird. So as a photographer, you don't earn like $1 million, right? Now, that's because a lot of people don't want to pay a lot of money for, yeah, there you go, the photo shoot. So if you do a senior photo shoot or a professional photo shoot for a model and you have to retouch, what do? If you start dodging and burning and I do 4 images, I hope that X-Rite will stay online for that long, for the very simple reason tomorrow morning I will be done. So a real professional photographer who has to earn his money probably won't use dodge and burn unless they're being paid by, let's say, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, or whatever. What they use is filters. Is that cheating? I don't think so. We're shooting with 24, 36, 60 megapixel files. The biggest prints you get is billboards. But billboards are a very low resolution. People won't stand in front of it. As long as it looks nice and good, use the filters. The first thing I will do is go into 100%, and I will make sure that everything that is really taking the attention is taken out with the healing brush. Now, some people say, why do you use an oval as a healing brush? Very simple. I can move a little bit easier. And when I move and clone, it doesn't show up as obvious as a round one would do. How do you change it? Very simple. You go here and you just change it from round to an oval. And of course, you can change the angle. Okay. So let's take away some of the areas which I don't like. I'm using the Alt key to sample very close to the area I want to retouch. So there we go. Nice. And I'm going to run the filter. And the filter I use is image normic portraiture. It's very, very simple and very cool. So we go into image normic portraiture. And the only thing you have to do is you go to 100%, you look at the face, and you go like, okay, yeah, that's a little bit too much. And you just change it. I don't change it now. I change it later in Photoshop. But this is one solution. The only problem is I love her freckles. So I don't want to take them out, actually. I love the way her skin is. So I won't use the filter on Rosa. But if you have a model with difficult skin, this is the perfect way to use a filter. The other one that's really, really cool is something else. What you can now actually do is the following. Go into Filter, first create a new layer, and go into Topaz. Now, if you don't have the money for image normic portraiture, which is a pretty expensive filter, go into Topaz Clean 3, and on my website you can find some discount codes. The fun part about Topaz is actually if you have a model that has a really bad skin, you can do something really cool. You go into Skin Even, and you can actually change the strength, play with the thresholds. Let's watch this. You can put in structure. And now we have a before. I hope it shows up on your computer screens before and after. And maybe I like this filter even a little bit more than the other one, Imagenomic. The only problem is Imagenomic can be run in batch. So if you have to do a lot of images, what I actually normally do is I created an action. So first select an image. So this is how the picture comes in, and I just run an action called Portrait Smooth. In the background, it now runs Imagenomic Portraiture, and it gives me a layer mask which hides all because it's black. The only thing I have to do is take a brush and just paint the effect in, and I can do my next image. Okay, but I don't want to destroy her face by using a filter because she has beautiful skin. The only problem is under her eyes. I want to flatten out that a little bit. Now, of course, you can start cloning, and that's a nice idea. But what I will actually do is this. I will create a new layer, and now I will create a clone tool with a very low opacity, let's say 32%. And I will clone out everything. So make it very unnatural. Because don't clone it out, because everybody has this stuff under her eyes. The stuff under her eyes is always difficult in the skin. It's with every person, there's something like a little bit of roughness. If you take it out, it doesn't look natural anymore. So I'm actually flattening out a lot of the areas now. Cool, but this is way too much. So what I will actually do is I will start at 0% on my opacity. Sorry, I have to remember that there's a 5-second delay. 0% opacity, and I will just start adding a little bit of the effect. There we go. Now if you say I want a little bit more of pores in there, what you can actually do on that area is add a little bit of noise. But this is okay for me now. So flatten the image. This is something I always do. I always flatten my images. Some people say, why do you do that? I can explain, but it's just something I do. So when I work with 60 megapixel files and I work in 6-7 layers and in groups, I just lose count of where I am. And normally my retouch procedure is like 5 minutes per image. If I make a mistake, I will just start over. And normally we do a lot of the same stuff. All the retouching is the same steps, so you don't make a lot of mistakes. I want to make the eyes a little bit more pop. So what I do is I will take the, how do you call it? The Dodge tool. There we go. Sorry guys. Put it on highlights, exposure, 42%, that's okay. I'll just only touch the iris. Don't touch the eye white, just a little bit on the irises. There we go. Nice. Cool. Now I want a little bit more bite in the background. I love the background, but I want a little bit more detail in there. I'm first going to show you how to do it without using any filters. You go into a new layer, you go into filter, and you go into high pass. You create something like this. You only concentrate on the background. Press OK. And you use something like, let's say, hard light to create more depth in the background. See before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you guys see the before. I press here, more detail. And of course you can use a layer mask to hide this out. But look how ugly she looks. Sorry, Rosa. It's terrible. She looks like a cartoon character. And this is why I love filters again. Everything, and remember this, everything a filter does, you can actually do in Photoshop, because a filter is nothing more than using Photoshop's capabilities to create something. And sometimes they do it very, very smart. Now, in the past, I used, of course, Nik tonal contrast, which is awesome. Then, let me go even further back. I used something called LucasArt, which is really awesome. But they don't support Mac 64 anymore, and I don't want to run with an old version of Photoshop. Then I used tonal contrast. It was okay, but it created some nasty halos. Then, a few months ago, I got into contact with Topaz Clarity. Awesome. Really great. If you're on a PC, check out Clarity. It's really cool. If you're on a Mac, however, there's something that's even better. Create a new layer. Sorry, a duplicate layer. And what you're going to do is filter, and you're going to find the guys from Mac Fun. And they use something called Intensify. Now, Intensify really rocked my world. This is so cool. I created some presets for them, which you can download also. And let's just say image pop. There we go. Now, this is way more enhanced than you saw me using the high pass filtering. But look how nice her face stays. It's still terrible because it looks way worse than it was. Look at this area and her chest. It isn't nice. If I deliver something like this to my model, she will go like, yeah, Frank, nice knowing you, bye-bye. But you can use layer masks, of course. And we're going to do that in a moment. But you can also pop the skin just a little bit, like this. See the before and after. It just gives a little bit of brightness to the skin. You can make a cool, contrasty black and white, or dramatic black and white. But let's go for just image pop. There we go. We press apply. And it's a very complicated filter it's running, so it takes a little bit of a while. And there we go. And for you guys, it takes 5 seconds longer. That's not true. You start 5 seconds later. Layer mask. Now what I do is, in this case, I will do a reveal all. Now, what's the difference between reveal all and hide all? Hide all will hide everything, and you have to paint the effect in. Reveal all will actually show you everything, and you have to paint the effect out. In this case, I find it easier to paint the effect out, because I know on which areas I want the effect, and I know on which areas I don't want the effect. So I'm going to take a brush with black paint. I'm going to change the opacity to, let's say, about 50%. And I'm going to paint the effect out of her chest area. There we go. And a little bit out of her face, not too much. And before and after. Really cool, one click. And of course, the purists will say, Frank, this is cheating. Well, I have time to play Battlefield at night, and they don't, because they're still dodging and burning, and I'm already done. So let's go layer flatten image. Now in this case, because I really enhanced her skin, I do want to run portrait smooth very quickly. And again, this runs in the background image normal portraiture and gives me a layer hide all, and I will just paint out the effect, the roughness. The fun part is I still have that image pop, but I'm cloning, I'm losing the roughness by using the image portraiture. Layer flatten image. Okay, now the final step, and this is also very important for me. I always say I'm a 99.9% digital photographer, but in my heart I'm a 100% analog photographer. Meaning I think in film types, I think in analog photography. I love digital, don't get me wrong. But why should you be stuck with one look? Because if you're shooting digital, you're actually stuck with one look. It's the sensor. I'm using the Sony cameras. Their sensors rock. But it's still the same look over and over again. And when you use the color checker, it's the perfect look over and over again. And it can get a little bit boring. In the old days, and even today, I'm still shooting film. I recently bought a Yashica Mat, a TLR. It's great on streets. You can just walk up to somebody. Hey, dude, nice camera. Yeah, can I take your picture? Way better than if you walk up to somebody with a DSLR. But I'm mumbling away, sorry. What you actually did is you choose your film type, let's say Portra or Riella, for the look they had. Nowadays, you can do the same thing in Photoshop. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to use my favorite filter for that, and that's DxO Film Pack. Now, DxO Film Pack is actually pretty cool. What it does is it lets you create film looks. And of course, I created some custom presets. And first, I can do the clickety-click until you see what you like shots. So we'll just click, see what happens. And if I like it, I will keep it. Oh, I love the black and white conversion. That's really cool. How do you like that, Rosa? Nice, I thought so. That's a little bit too extreme for me. Nice. Okay. Normally, I would go, and don't tell anybody else. We have to keep this our secret, guys. I will go for the red pop. Nice. But in this case, it gives her a little bit too much of her skin tone. And because I have to do the whole series in this setup, I really have to find the one that I really like. I love this. This is a really cool vintage portrait. Let's go save, because we only have 4 minutes left. And again, you can actually use the opacity to let the original come back, but I like this. So layer flatten image. The only thing I want is I want a little bit of the contrast down, sorry, of the color down. So saturation, just a little bit down. There we go. The nice thing about Photoshop Lightroom is I do File, Close, and Save. And now when I go back into Lightroom, there we go, the file is already here. What I now do is I will select this one. This is the original, right? Retouched, original. I will press on the 5-star and I will press the U. You will unflag it. Now, why do I give it 5 stars? Very simple. If I go back to my folder with all the files in there, I want to make absolutely sure that I know which ones I retouched. So all the ones with 5 stars are the ones that I retouched. Now, some people say, why don't you keep the pics on, like the piece? The problem is when I leave the piece on, and at one point I will say show all flagged images because I want to know which one I still have to retouch. Like a million images will show up. And when I use the star system, the P's are the ones I still have to retouch. And sometimes I have to retouch for 5 or 6 different shoots. And I will just go on the top and just say show all the images I still have to retouch. So that's when I use the stars. Okay, I think this is it for me because I'm almost out of time. Are there any questions? So maybe if the X-Rite girl can take over and let me show some questions.
Hi, Frank. Yep, you do have a few questions. Johan's wondering what lens you used today.
I'm using a 24-70 Zeiss f2.8 out of focus lens with a lens hood made from plastic, and it turns right. Now, why do I say this? I'm just kidding with you guys, of course. One of the first things I always tell people, if you want to progress in photography, you have to start realizing one very, very important thing. The most important thing is between your eyes, not in front of your eyes. In other words, I create the story, I create the move. If you have let's say an exhibition in a museum and you see paintings, you see a lot of people standing in front of the paintings and going like, oh, I really like this painting, I really like this, I really like that. Oh man, this looks awesome. What would the artist intended with this picture? Now, if you post a picture online and you do a photography picture, and this is so weird, this is really the attitude of photographers. The first thing they ask, what lens did you use? What camera did you use? And I sometimes mess around with them and I go like, oh yeah, this was a medium format. And they will respond like, yeah, you can really see the quality. And then in essence, it's an iPhone shot. It's really about the story. And the lenses, of course, are very important because the lens actually creates the compression in a scene. In other words, if you use a 70mm, it looks different from a 35. If you use a 200, it will look different. So with your lens, it's actually your creative tool. And I love shooting with the 24-70. And I recently got a Sigma 1.4 arc lens, and I really fell in love with that one. You're going to see a lot of the images. We're going to do a tour next week in the UK, and you're going to see a lot of images I shot with that lens. And not because it's razor sharp, but I love the compression and the bokeh of the background. So that's awesome with that lens. So any more questions?
Keith would like to know, do you always use a Wacom for retouching?
Yeah, and I have a joke about that. Sometimes when something doesn't work right, we always call it the Wacom effect, if you have to get used to something, because the first 2-3 days when you use a Wacom, you want to literally burn the bloody thing and throw it out of the window and cheer. And I was way faster with my mouse. And then I was going like, if all the other people are using Wacom, man, I should really get used to Wacom. And this is like 10 years ago. And I started getting used to the Wacom. And at this moment, I have even one with me when I travel. But a lot of the students I speak to, the first 3 days, they want to literally stop using the Wacom. Please, guys, go on, use the thing, because if you get used to it, it's awesome, and it really speeds up your workflow.
Johan says his photos often color green or blue when he makes a profile, or even when he just uses the white balance checker. Do you have any ideas on what he might be doing wrong?
Yeah, let him email me and I will help him through. One of the main things is a lot of people use color checkers, and what they forget is how to light them. You have to light them very, very flat, and you have to realize that you do the color balancing after you assign the profile. And the other thing, and that's probably where he goes wrong, it can also be your monitor. I'm using an ISO monitor or a Dell monitor, and especially the ISOs are really good at color. And make sure that you calibrate your monitor. And for calibration, of course, X-Rite makes beautiful, beautiful products. I'm using the Color Photo Monkey. But do realize, and that this is something that will shock certain people, if you use a tri-stimulus meter, and those are all the meters that are cheap, like the Spiders, the stepping X-Rites, those are meters that work with gels. And they can use a lot of gels, but they're still gels. And the problem with gels is that over time, they will deteriorate. Meaning my advice, and it sounds terrible, every 2 years get a new analyzer. And you could say, yeah, Frank, you're being paid by X-Rite to say this, but it isn't true. If you look on my blog, I'm already telling you this many, many years, because an analyzer will actually get worse over time. If you use an analyzer with a so-called spectrometer, you have to send them in, and I don't know if X-Rite does it, but you can always find out. You have to send them in every 2 years to have them recalibrated. So if you have a meter that's like 2 or 3 years old and you're getting all these funky colors, change your meter, and I kid you not, probably it will be okay.
And
Any more
our
questions?
our last question is from Will. He says, "Great webinar. He's just brought a Nick collection of plugins. Any quick tips for using that software as his budget doesn't run to Topaz and other software at the moment?"
Okay, well, Topaz doesn't need any budget. It's very, very cheap and very good. But the Nick collection is actually a great start. I think all professional photographers started out with Nick. And now that it's with Google, they are actually, we were a little bit afraid that they wouldn't support Nick anymore, but they're doing just fine. One of the things that I absolutely adore from the Nick collection is Analog FX Pro. If you go into the wet plates, I kid you not, make sure that the next 2 hours your wife is gone shopping or whatever, because the next 2 hours you will be playing around with the Analog FX Pro set like crazy. If you want that effect that you see on the background, check out in the Nick collection, it's in Color FX. Check out the tonal contrast. Also in the Color FX, there's a skin smoother. It's not as good as the Topaz one, or it's far from the Imagenomic one, but it's pretty good to start with. But make sure that you're shooting people. Don't make them into a Barbie, so don't over smooth it. You can better have a little bit too much detail than over smooth it. But the Nick collection is a great way to start. And of course, later on, you saw me using the Mac Fun software and the Topaz software. Those are my second choices. And for the film looks, I use DxO Film Pack and Alien Skin Exposure, which I also really like. And for all, including Nick, by the way, we have, but we only do that for the software that gives you film looks. We created our own presets, which you can find on our website.
Okay, I think that's all our questions. Well, thank you, Frank, and thanks for watching, everybody.
Okay, no
Um,
problem. And if they have more questions, they can always email me or go on Google Plus or whatever and get in contact with me.
that's great, thanks. If there are any more questions, as Frank said, you can contact him and we'll try and collate them all and answer them when we can. I'd also like to thank Wex Photographic for working in partnership with us to promote Frank's webinar, and have a look at their website for all the latest products from X-Rite. Don't forget, you can learn more about Frank and what he does at frankdoorhof.com. And go and take a look at his book on Amazon if you enjoyed today's webinar. Our webinar archive will be available at xwritephoto.com/learning. And I will upload this webinar as soon as I can so you can watch it again. And finally, thanks again, Frank, and thanks for all of you watching.
Thank you guys. See you next time.